Hello and welcome to today's Python tutorial. Today we are going to talk about list comprehensions in Python. They are a great way to create new lists. Now, first let's use two common ways of creating new lists. We have this list of names, John, Mary and Sarah, all in lowercase letters. If I want to create a new list now with uppercase letters, so I can simply say upper names equals a new empty list. So I want to loop through this list, turn each into uppercase and add it to upper names. So I use a for loop. For, let's say name or I or whatever, in names, that is for every item in names, that is for John, for example, for Mary, for Sarah. Do this, turn that name, that single item, into uppercase. So this is the method that Python gives us. But when you do that, I want you to add it, that uppercase, to the upper names, this list. So for that, we need to use that list dot append, and we need to append it. So append what? This. So it goes through the list. It sees John, turns John into uppercase and adds it to upper names, then Mary and then Sarah. Now if I print upper names, let me just copy it for later reference, and run this, you should see John, Mary and Sarah all in uppercase. So far, so good. Now I want to use another way. This is quite long. So I can use a function called a map function. So for that, I need to use, again, upper names to create just a new list. And I use map is a function, parentheses, and inside that I need to have two arguments. The first one is going to be the function that I want to apply. So here would be str like string.upper. You see these? This is a normal way of using methods with parentheses. But inside map, you don't need these parentheses anyways. It knows that's a function, the first argument. And the second one would be the name of the list or an iterable that I want to apply these functions to, which is names. So now, what map does, it goes through this iterable and applies this function to each and every item in that list. And what it returns is actually an object, not a list. So if I print this now, you should see a map object at this place in memory. So I have an object now. If I want to turn it into a list, I can simply use list here, the word list, and I can put it inside parentheses. Now it should give me the list. So we just turn that map object into a list. John, Mary and Sarah, all in uppercase. So map is also another way of doing it. But now we are going to use list comprehensions. So let me get rid of these here. Okay. Now list comprehensions are super easy. So we are going to create a list, upper names, right? That is why we just use this list here, square brackets, and inside the list we are going to use our for loop here, right inside the list, but for loop in a reverse order. So in our normal for loops we had our for loop, for expression statement, like for name, in names, and then here we had our expression name.upper, right? So this is the expression, this is the for statement. But inside list comprehensions, we use our expression first. That is this one, goes here first, space. And then we use our for name, well, for loop here, without those colons. So I'm going to remove them. No colons here. So this is exactly the same. And whatever it returns will be added to this list, upper names. Easy. You don't need to append anything because it's going to happen inside the list. So I run this. John, Mary and Sarah, all in uppercase letters. Cool. Another good thing about this list comprehension is that I can also filter out some items using an if statement here. So imagine I don't want to have Mary inside this list now. So if the name is Mary, I want to avoid it. I don't want to include it. So what I can do, I can just put an if statement after our for statement. If name is not equal to Mary. So what it does is that as long as name is not Mary, do this. But when name is Mary, leave it out, filter it. So if I run this, you will not see name Mary here. If I run this now, John and Sarah. So it kind of acts as a filter now. So if name is not Mary, do this. What if name is Mary? Well, you should not do this. Leave the Mary out. Now let's say that I want to have another condition like an else statement. If I have another condition, I can just use this before our for statement here. But this doesn't work if I don't give it an else statement. So let me just run this to see there's an error now. You see? So invalid syntax. I need to have an else statement here. Else and no colons again. So if this is true, that its name is not Mary, return these. But as soon as name equals Mary, I want you to replace Mary with, let's say, Jack. So let's run this and see what happens now. You see, John, now Jack has been inserted here. So what it does is that it says return the item if it is not Mary. Return John. It is not Mary. Otherwise, if it is Mary, return Jack instead. This might sound counterintuitive in the beginning, but this is how it goes now. So this is the way you create a new list using list comprehensions with also conditionals. Just try to practice it a bit. If you want to filter out something, just use if statement at the end. If you want to say, okay, if this is not true, I want this to happen, I want this to be replaced, for instance, use an else statement as well. That's it for today. Thank you for listening and watching.